Parshas Chaya Sarah. I have a handout that I've given out to you that has 10 citations in the Chumash where it says in the pasuk Vayisa einav vayar, that he or she lifted up their eyes and they saw. And that's a very unusual phraseology. And it appears, from what I could tell, I don't know if I've missed any, but most of them, or actually all of them, are in Sefer Bereshis. There's one in Sefer Yehoshua, but I'm looking at the Chumash specifically, where the terminology is he or she lifted up their eyes and saw. Now normally when you want to say that someone saw, you say Vayar or Vatere. Like by Hagar, she sees the well, but it doesn't say right. She lifted up her eyes. So why in these specific examples are people lifting up their eyes? So I have a theory. We're not going to go through all of the examples. We're running out of time. But you can look at these examples and tell me if they resonate with you. I think that the theory works for all of the examples that we have on the sheet over here. The concept of lifting up your eyes to see is that a person, there's an objective reality that is visible to all. And lifting up your eyes to see means that you choose to extract something from that objective reality that is specific to your subjective experience. So that sometimes you and I could be looking at exactly the same thing, but you've lifted up your eyes and seen one thing, and I've lifted up my eyes and I see something totally different. Right? So, let's say, for example, my favorite topic, which is the traffic on Bathurst. Right? So, when I'm driving on Bathurst, I say, what am I doing here? I thought I left California to get out of traffic, and I'm coming back into traffic, right? So my subjective reality is, what a headache. But a person who's a civil engineer, is that the term, civic engineer or civil engineer? Civil engineer says, what an opportunity. I can bring this to City Hall and I can lobby them now to build a subway. So we've got two subjective realities. The objective reality is the same. We're in gridlock. But where I look at it as, this is the Sutton playing tricks on me, he's looking at it as a tremendous opportunity. So we both lift up our eyes and we see the same thing, but we see two totally different things, yes? And I think that's the whole message of Vayisa einav vayar, that he lifted up his eyes and he saw something that was a special message. He derived or she derived a special message for her or for him. So how is this relevant to Parshas Chaya Sarah? You'll find that it appears, for example, the first example of Vayisa einav is Lot, that we saw in Parshas Lech Lecha. Vayisa Lot es einav. Lot lifted up his eyes, Vayar es kol kikar hayardin ki chula mashke, that it was a beautiful, fertile area, and before God had destroyed Sodom and Amorah. Now, Avraham would have lifted up his eyes and looked at Sodom, and what would he have seen? His subjective reality of Sodom was that it's a corrupt, depraved place that he wanted to run very far away from. And Lot had a subjective reality, which was he saw what an opportunity to live well. So that's why it's Vayisa einav vayar. Okay? In Parshas Vayera, last week's Parsha, when we read about Avraham Avinu, and he sees his three guests, it also says Vayisa einav vayar v'hinei shelosha anoshim nitzavim alav. He lifted up his eyes and he saw three men that were standing in front of him. Well, how far away were they from him? If you and I had seen them, we just would have seen people walking down the street. Right? But when Avraham saw them, he saw a mitzvah in front of him. He saw three men that he had an opportunity to do a mitzvah of achnasas orchim. It's like you can see two people on Shabbos walking down the street, and they both pass a stranger coming from two opposite directions, but one person says, an opportunity to wish someone Shabbat Shalom who's not observant, and the other person says, someone I have to, just an obstacle in the road, and they just keep on moving. So two people have the same objective reality, and two people see it in two different ways, yes? Right? So If you take a look at the end of the Parsha, you find that this whole episode of two people looking up and seeing two completely different things. And this is after Eliezer has discovered Rivka. Now, just keep in mind, how did Eliezer discover Rivka? He used a certain kind of nisayon, a certain kind of test. And his test was specifically what? What kind of test did he use? Anyone remember the story? What kind of test did Eliezer employ? Yeah.
He was using a character test.
A character test, yes. But specifically what?
She says the woman that's going to be Yitzchak's wife will be the one who offers him water and offers his camels.
Precisely, exactly. So if she's a balas chesed, if she's a woman who wants to do kindness to others, so then this is going to be the appropriate wife for my master's son, for Yitzchak. So keep that test in mind. I mean, he could have used a number of tests. Right? If you're looking for a good shidduch for your son, right, and you want to meet a nice girl, right? So we normally say, do they use plastic over the tablecloth? Are they scrapers and stackers? Right? Is that you know that test? They scrape and stack at the table. Is that the appropriate? Are we using the appropriate tests like Eliezer did? Right. So let's just keep that in mind when you're thinking about shidduchim. Okay. Think about the important issues in life, about what you want to try and find for your son and daughter. All right. In any event, so that's the test that Eliezer uses, the character test. We find when Eliezer finally brings Rivka back to Eretz Yisrael, where Yitzchak is living, it says that Yitzchak is living in the Negev, and he came out to Be'er Lachai Roi, which was a well that was well known for people having revelations, because Hagar had a revelation of an angel. And it says, Vayetze Yitzchak lasuach basadeh lifnot arev. Yitzchak went out into the field to speak. Lasuach. And as we know, we've learned this before together, Ein sicha ela tefillah. The word sicha in the Torah, especially in this context, refers to tefillah. That Yitzchak's objective of going out into the field was to daven. He is the initiator, the originator of tefillat mincha, which is something that he does towards as the sun is about to go down. And then what does it say? And this is where you have on your sheet, it's pasuk Samach Gimel, number 4. Vayetze Yitzchak lasuach basadeh lifnot arev, vayisayna vayar. He lifts up his eyes and he sees, v'hinei gimalim ba'im. He says, oh, there's an interesting, camels coming. Camels coming. When was the last time you were out in the desert and you just saw camels roaming on their own? Right? Usually camels have riders. So why does the Torah say that Yitzchak noticed that camels were coming? He should have said that Yitzchak noticed that people were coming on camels. Because isn't that interesting? A strange way of what's Yitzchak's perspective here. So we're getting a clue already that Yitzchak has a certain attitude, a certain perspective, because his vayisa inav. He lifted up his eyes. So the Torah is telling us here's Yitzchak's subjective reality, not the objective reality. All right. Now, the next pasuk is let's look at Rivka's lifting up of her eyes. Vatisa Rivka es eineha, she lifts up her eyes. Vatera es Yitzchak. She sees a Yitzchak. She doesn't see a camel. She doesn't see a guy. She sees the shidduch, right? She sees Yitzchak. Vatipol me'al hagamal. The hours later, I'm just going to finish up with this idea. And not only that, but she says in the next pasuk, which I don't have in front of you, she says to the servant, Mi ha'isha lazeh, who is this man? Ha'holech basadeh likratenu, who's walking in the field to greet us. And Eliezer says, Hu Adoni, that's the guy, that's the shidduch. Now what was Rivka's mistake? Rivka had a subjective understanding of the reality was that I go out and I do chesed to other people. So my bashert, the man of my dreams, is a man that will help me in my quest to do chesed for all the people of the world. And just as I go out to bring water to the hungry or thirsty camels and travelers, my husband will go out into the field and greet others and bring them into his tent. But what's the objective reality? What was Yitzchak doing out in the field? Was he going out to greet the travelers out in the field? Not at all. He was going to daven. He was going to commune with God. He was a man that was centrally and exclusively focused on a vertical relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He was oblivious. I shouldn't say totally oblivious, but certainly that was not his focus in life. It was very much unlike his father Avraham, which was to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu through going out and bringing people in. He was lasuach basara. His whole attitude of being a holy man was having this relationship, not this relationship. So Rivka sees one thing, Yitzchak sees another thing. He just sees camels coming. He's not interested in people. He just sees that there are people coming. They're going to share my davening potential, or But his curiosity is not about the individual people. He just sees something coming towards him, and he concludes that there must be some purpose, but it is as of yet undiscovered purpose. He's not thinking about the shidduch. He's not thinking about the Rivka on the camel. He's certainly not thinking about going to greet them. It doesn't say that he runs out to greet them. Right? So the point is that it was a perfect shidduch. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Understand it was a perfect shidduch? Because Yitzchak needed a Rivka, and Rivka needed a Yitzchak. And sometimes a couple that's in love and have a perfect relationship can have a completely different view on life, but that's what makes the marriage work. And they complement each other. You have to remember that HaKadosh Baruch Hu presents us with experiences in life, and what we do with those objective realities through our subjective lifting up our eyes to see is part of the test of life. Have a good Shabbos, everyone, and